I never planned on disappearing. I never thought I'd be the guy who just walks away from his whole life without a word. But when the truth crawls into your skin like poison, when every breath in your own home feels suffocating, when you look at the person you promised forever to and realize they've been feeding you lies like candy, you either let it kill you or you leave. 3.5 years. That's how long I was married before I found out. Not through some dramatic discovery. Not by walking in on something I shouldn't have seen. No, it was worse than that. It was the slow rot of suspicion, the kind that eats at you, that makes every moment feel off without ever showing you exactly why. It was a Friday night, one of those long weeks where all I wanted was a beer and some mindless TV. She told me she was going out with her coworkers for drinks, something she'd been doing a lot more lately. Just a quick happy hour, she'd said, already halfway out the door, already dressed like it wasn't just happy hour. I almost said something. Almost asked why she needed to wear perfume strong enough to choke someone 2 rooms away. But I didn't. Because I still wanted to believe her. I fell asleep on the couch waiting. Woke up at 2:47 a.m. to the sound of the front door creaking open. I didn't move. Just listened. The way she tiptoed in like a teenager sneaking past curfew. The way she stood in the dark for a second like she was making sure I was asleep. I heard the rustling of clothes, the quiet shuffle of her slipping out of something before she walked past me toward the bedroom. And then I smelled it. Something that was not her. Something that was not mine. I stayed on the couch, heart pounding. I didn't go to the bedroom. Didn't confront her. Because what was I supposed to say? That I knew just from the way she smelled? That I felt it in my bones even without proof? No. I needed more. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her car. She always kept it neat, almost too neat, like she was hiding something. And sure enough, under the passenger seat, barely peeking out, was a crumpled receipt. A hotel receipt. Timestamped at 11:42 p.m. Her happy hour was at 6. I sat there in the driver's seat, staring at the paper, my stomach twisting itself into knots. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe she met up with an old friend. Maybe she just needed a place to sleep because she had too much to drink. Maybe, and then I flipped it over. A handwritten note on the back. 4 words, rushed and sloppy, can't wait for next time. I couldn't breathe. The walls of the car closed in on me. I don't even remember getting out. Just remember walking into the house like a ghost, the receipt burning in my hand. She was in the kitchen, humming to herself like she wasn't slowly ripping my life apart. I held the receipt up. What's this? She turned, blinked, and for a split second, just a fraction of a second, her face froze, like her brain was scrambling for the right response. Then she laughed. Laughed. Oh my God. You went through my car? She snatched the paper from my hand like I was the one who did something wrong. Jesus, are you serious right now? My pulse was a hammer in my ears. I asked you a question. She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. It's from a work event. At nearly midnight? She crossed her arms, chin lifting in defiance. We got a couple of rooms for the team. Some people were too drunk to drive. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the note, the smell, the way she came home like she was sneaking in after breaking every promise she ever made to me. Who wrote this? My voice came out rough, barely controlled. I held up the back of the receipt. She looked at it, and for the first time her mask slipped. Her face twitched, just slightly. I don't know. Probably a joke from one of the guys. I let out a breath, stepping closer. Say his name. She scoffed. Oh, come on, say his name. Silence. And that was it. That was the moment I knew. Because there was a name. And she wasn't saying it. I walked away. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I just remember the sound of her calling my name, of her saying I was overreacting, that I was crazy, that she couldn't believe I didn't trust her. I remember my hands shaking as I started the car. I drove. I didn't know where I was going, just that I needed to be anywhere but there. And that's how it ended. That's how I walked away quietly after learning about my wife's affair 3.5 years into our marriage. A year later, my ghosted ex-wife tracked me down. I cut her off completely. No texts. No calls. No long, dramatic fights where she got to cry and manipulate the situation into something it wasn't. I didn't care if she was sorry. I didn't care if she missed me. I disappeared. For the first few weeks, she tried. She called from her number, then unknown numbers. She emailed, even showed up at my brother's place once where I'd been crashing. He told her to leave before he made her. She didn't try again after that. It was almost disappointing how quickly she gave up. But maybe that was the truth of it. Maybe I had always been disposable to her. Divorce papers were filed. I never saw her in person again. No closure, no last conversation, just a mess of signatures and legal bullshit handled through lawyers. My name was erased from her life just as easily as hers was erased from mine. And I moved on. Or at least, I tried. A year is a long time. Enough time to build something new. To become a different version of yourself. I moved to a new city, got a job that kept me busy, met new people. I went on dates. Nothing serious, nothing deep. I wasn't ready for that. But I was living. I was breathing. And that was more than I could say for myself in the last months of my marriage. Then, one night, she came back. I had just gotten home from work, kicked my shoes off, and was halfway through a takeout burger when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. A sharp inhale on the other end. Then, hey. My stomach twisted. It was her. I pulled the phone away from my ear, stared at the number. My first instinct was to hang up. But I didn't. Why are you calling me? My voice came out flat, emotionless. I know I shouldn't, she said quickly. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just needed to talk to you. I stayed silent. She took that as permission to continue. Look, I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I hurt you. But I just want to explain. I laughed. Actually laughed. A year later? I know. She let out a breath. I made a mistake, okay? A really, really bad mistake. And I lost everything because of it. Good. She sniffed. And it took me a second to realize she was crying. I waited for it to affect me. For some old piece of me to want to comfort her. To fix whatever was breaking her now. But there was nothing. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she whispered. Silence stretched between us. Then I said, Are you still with him? She sucked in a sharp breath. Gotcha. Why does that matter? She asked, voice suddenly small. Because if you were actually sorry, I said, you wouldn't be in love with the person you threw our marriage away for. She didn't answer. I nodded to myself, even though she couldn't see me. Don't call me again. And I hung up. But she wasn't done with me yet. I thought that was the end of it. I thought she got the message. I thought I had slammed the door shut, locked it, and thrown away the key. But people like her, they don't let things go. Not really. They come back, like a bad habit, like an old wound that never fully healed. It started small. A few days after the call, I got an email. Subject, please just read this. I almost deleted it without opening it. But my curiosity got the better of me. I know you don't want to hear from me. And I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But please, can we just meet once? Just for a conversation. I just need you to understand what really happened. I swear, I'm not asking for anything more than that. Please. No signature. No name. Just that. I closed the email, left it unanswered. Then 2 days later, another one. I just need 10 minutes. Please. After that, you never have to hear from me again. Then another. I'm not okay. I don't know who else to talk to. I should have blocked her. Should have ignored it all. But something about that last one got under my skin. Maybe because, for a long time, she was my person. The one I told everything to. The one I thought I could trust with my worst days. And now she was telling me she wasn't okay? I didn't respond. But I didn't block her either. That was my first mistake. A week later, she showed up in person. It was a Sunday. I had just finished a run and was walking back up to my apartment when I saw someone sitting on the steps. Head down. Shoulders slumped. And then she looked up. My stomach turned to ice. She was thinner. Not in a healthy way. Her hair, once always styled to perfection, was thrown up in a messy bun like she hadn't touched it in days. And her eyes were hollow. For a second, I just stood there. Like my brain couldn't process that she was real, sitting right there in front of me after a full year of silence. Finally, I found my voice. What the hell are you doing here? She exhaled, her breath shaky. I didn't know how else to get you to talk to me. I clenched my jaw, my hands curling into fists. I told you not to call me again. That included showing up at my goddamn home. She swallowed hard. I know. And I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. Go to him, I snapped before I could stop myself. Her face crumpled. I can't. I let out a harsh laugh. What, did he cheat on you too? That's usually how it goes, right? Silence. And that's when I knew. Oh. I let the realization settle between us like a thick fog. She wasn't here because she missed me. She wasn't here because she felt guilty. She was here because he was gone. Unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. So that's what this is? You lost him and now you're crawling back to me. She flinched, her hands gripping the fabric of her hoodie like it was the only thing keeping her together. It's not like that. Then explain it to me, I challenged, folding my arms. You've had a year to come clean. A whole year to tell me the truth. And now, after he's out of the picture, now you suddenly need to talk. She pressed her lips together, eyes darting away. I could see it, her brain working overtime, trying to find the right words. The right angle. The right lie. I didn't have time for this. I stepped past her, heading for my door. Go home. I don't have a home, she blurted out. I stopped in my tracks. Slowly, I turned. Excuse me? She let out a shaky breath, her fingers tightening around the edge of her sleeves. I lost everything. The apartment, the job, him. It all fell apart. For a split second, I felt something. Not sympathy, not pity, just a strange sense of poetic justice. I took a slow step forward. You really thought he was going to be your happily ever after, huh? Her eyes flickered with something. Anger, maybe, or shame. I made a mistake. No, I said coldly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is backing into someone's car in a parking lot. What you did was a choice. She looked down, said nothing. I scoffed, turning back toward my door. Not my problem. And then she whispered, I have nowhere else to go. I should have walked inside. I should have slammed the door and never looked back. But instead, I hesitated. That was my second mistake. I stepped aside, letting her into my apartment, already knowing I'd regret it. She hesitated for a second, like she couldn't believe I was actually letting her in. But then she moved past me, stepping into the place I had built for myself, a place where she had never existed. I locked the door behind me and turned to see her standing in the middle of my living room, looking out of place as hell. She glanced around at the couch, the coffee table littered with unopened mail, the half-finished drink on the counter. It was a simple space. Nothing fancy. But it was mine. And now she was in it. I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall. So, what now? She let out a slow breath. I don't know. I scoffed. Not much of a plan, huh? Her shoulders tensed. I didn't exactly think this far ahead. No kidding. She turned then, finally looking at me. I know you hate me. I said nothing. I know I don't deserve to be here, she continued. I know she swallowed. I know I burned everything to the ground. I tilted my head. That's one way to put it. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. I needed someone. And you were the only person I could think of. I let out a humorless laugh. Wow, what an honor. She sighed, running a hand down her face. Look, if you want me to leave, just say the word, okay? I'll go. I should have said it. Should have told her to get out to deal with her problems on her own the same way I had to. But I didn't. Instead, I ran a hand through my hair and sighed. You hungry? Her head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. What? Are you hungry? I repeated slowly. She hesitated, then nodded. I turned toward the kitchen, grabbing a couple of plates. You still eat like a bird, or do you actually have a normal appetite these days? Her lips parted slightly, like she wasn't sure if this was real. Normal, I guess? I nodded, throwing some leftovers into the microwave. I wasn't doing this to be nice. I wasn't doing this because I cared. I was doing this because, for whatever reason, I wanted to hear the rest. I wanted to know just how badly she had destroyed her own life. I set a plate in front of her, then sat down across from her at the kitchen table. She stared at the food like she hadn't eaten in days. I watched her take a bite, chew slowly, swallow. Then I leaned back. Start talking. She wiped her mouth, exhaling shakily. What do you want to know? I raised an eyebrow. Everything. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. And then she told me about how it all started. How the guy had swept her off her feet with big promises and even bigger lies. How she thought she had hit the jackpot, trading in a boring marriage for an exciting, fast-paced life with someone who made her feel alive. And then, she said bitterly, he started getting reckless. I listened as she described how little cracks started forming in her perfect world. Late nights with no explanations. Money going missing. Strange women showing up, texting him, calling him. She had suspected something was wrong for months. But just like I had once ignored my own instincts, she had ignored hers. She chose to believe him the same way I had once chosen to believe her. Until one night when she walked into their apartment and found another woman sitting on their couch, drinking her wine, wearing his shirt. That was the moment it all came crashing down. She confronted him. Screamed, cried, demanded answers. And he? He laughed. Told her she was overreacting. Told her she was crazy. Told her it wasn't what it looked like. Sound familiar? I let out a slow breath, tapping my fingers against the table. So, what did you do? She looked down at her plate. I stayed. I blinked. Excuse me. She let out a humorless laugh. Yeah, I know. Stupid, right? Beyond stupid, I muttered. She shook her head. I was in too deep. I had nothing without him. No money, no place to go. So I convinced myself it was just one mistake. That he still loved me. That I could fix it. I stared at her. And then he did it again. She nodded, gripping the edge of the table. And again. And again. And again. Jesus. I ran a hand over my face. So, what finally made you leave? She swallowed hard. I didn't. I frowned. What? She looked up at me then, and there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite place. He left me, she whispered. One day, I came home and he was just gone. No note. No explanation. Just disappeared. My stomach twisted. Not because I felt bad for her. Not because I thought she deserved better. But because I realized something. She didn't just lose her home. She was running from something. I stared at her, processing what she had just said. He left me. I wanted to laugh. I really did. Because wasn't this exactly what she had done to me? She walked out of our marriage, left me in the wreckage of something I thought was solid, and never looked back. And now here she was, sitting at my kitchen table, eating my food, telling me she had been abandoned. Karma was a poetic little bitch, wasn't she? But something about the way she said it, something in her voice, in her face, felt off. She wasn't just heartbroken. She was scared. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. So, let me get this straight. He cheats on you, lies to you, burns your life to the ground, and you still didn't leave. She nodded, gripping her fork like she needed something solid to hold on to. I told myself it was temporary, that we were just going through a rough patch. I scoffed. A rough patch. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't snap back. I know how it sounds. Oh, do you? I tilted my head. Because it sounds like you dug yourself a grave and just laid in it. She flinched. I didn't have a choice. I narrowed my eyes. What does that mean? She hesitated, and there it was again, that flicker of fear. Then quietly she said it wasn't just the cheating. A cold feeling settled in my gut. I kept my voice even. What else was it? She pressed her lips together, staring at the table like she was debating whether or not to say it. And then, finally, he was dangerous. I felt my whole body go still. Dangerous. I repeated the word in my head, turning it over, feeling the weight of it. I knew what she was implying. Knew it before she even said the next words. There were times when I thought he might hurt me. A slow, boiling anger started building in my chest. Not for her, necessarily. But the idea of any man putting his hands on a woman like that, treating her like something his to break, it made my blood run hot. But I forced my face to stay neutral. And did he? She swallowed. Not in the way you're thinking. But he knew how to make me feel small. Like I was nothing without him. And when he got angry, she trailed off, shaking her head. I don't know. Maybe it was just in my head. Maybe I was being paranoid. I exhaled through my nose. You don't show up at your ex-husband's apartment after a year of silence because of paranoia. She didn't answer. I studied her for a long moment. The way her fingers twitched slightly, The way she kept darting glances toward the door like she expected someone to come through it. Then I said, "What aren't you telling me?" Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. "Nothing." I raised an eyebrow. "Bullshit." She opened her mouth, closed it, then let out a breath. "I don't know if he's looking for me." The cold feeling in my stomach turned to ice. I sat up straighter. "You don't know?" She shook her head. "I haven't heard from him, but he doesn't lose. Ever. And I know things he wouldn't want getting out." I ran a hand down my face. Jesus Christ. I had let a goddamn storm into my home. She must have seen the shift in my expression because her voice turned desperate. "I just need a place to crash for a few days. Just until I figure out what to do." I let out a humorless laugh. "You think I'm just gonna let you stay here? After everything?" She clenched her jaw. "I wouldn't ask if I had anywhere else to go." I stared at her. A year ago, I would have given anything to have her sitting in front of me like this, needing me. "Yeah?" I didn't know what the hell I wanted. But I did know one thing: I had way more questions than answers. And if she was bringing trouble to my doorstep, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. So, against every rational thought in my brain, I exhaled sharply and said, "You have 2 days." Her shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you." "Don't." I shook my head. "Don't thank me. Because this wasn't mercy. This was me making sure she wasn't dragging something worse into my life." The first night, I barely slept. I kept hearing her move around in the guest room, the occasional shuffle of feet, the creak of the mattress as she shifted. Maybe she was restless. Maybe she was just as on edge as I was. But either way, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I had just done. Letting her in was a mistake. I knew it. Every logical part of my brain screamed at me to kick her out first thing in the morning. I owed her nothing. Not sympathy. Not a place to stay. Nothing. But then I thought about what she had said. "I don't know if he's looking for me." That part unsettled me the most. Because if her new perfect guy was dangerous, if he was the kind of man who wouldn't just let her walk away, then she hadn't just brought herself into my life. She had brought him too. And that was a problem. The next morning, I found her sitting on the couch, legs tucked up under her, staring blankly at the TV. She looked like she hadn't slept either. I walked past her into the kitchen, poured myself a coffee, and leaned against the counter. "So, what's your plan?" She blinked, like she hadn't even registered me standing there. I raised an eyebrow. "You do have a plan, right?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "Jesus." I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. "Okay, let me rephrase. What exactly are you running from? Because if you brought some psycho to my doorstep, I need to know." She flinched slightly. "I told you no, you gave me pieces," I cut in. "I want the whole damn story." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "I don't know if he's looking for me. But if he is, it's because of money." I frowned. "Explain." She exhaled, staring down at her lap. "When he left, he took everything. My savings, my credit, my apartment. I had nothing. But a few weeks later, I found something he didn't take." I tilted my head. "What?" She looked up at me. A flash drive. A weird chill ran down my spine. I kept my expression neutral. "What was on it?" She hesitated. "Stuff he was hiding. Financial records. Fake names. Transactions." My stomach tightened. "What kind of transactions?" Her lips pressed together. I stepped forward, lowering my voice. "What kind of transactions?" She inhaled sharply, then whispered, "Illegal ones." I stared at her. She stared back. I set my coffee down. "Are you telling me you stole evidence from a criminal?" "I didn't know what it was at first," she said quickly. "I thought it was just some old files. But then I started looking through it, and..." She shook her head. "It's bad." I clenched my jaw. "How bad?" She exhaled. "Money laundering. Fraud. Shell companies that don't exist. And names. People he was working with, people he was screwing over." Her fingers curled into the fabric of her hoodie. "If I have it, I have leverage. But if he finds out I have it, you're dead," I finished flatly. Her silence was confirmation. I leaned against the counter, staring at her. My brain was running a mile a minute. This wasn't just some messy breakup. This wasn't just a woman getting screwed over by the wrong man. She had stolen something valuable. And if the wrong people knew, she was a loose end waiting to be tied up. I exhaled slowly. Tell me you didn't tell anyone you have it. She hesitated. My stomach dropped. Jesus Christ. Who? She shifted uncomfortably. I went to the cops. My pulse spiked. And they brushed me off. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course they did. She bit her lip. But then, a few days later, I started getting weird calls. I frowned. Weird how? She swallowed. Blocked numbers. Silence on the other end. Sometimes just breathing. I clenched my jaw. And then I saw someone outside my old apartment. She whispered. I don't know if it was him, but it scared me enough to leave. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Unbelievable. This was a shitstorm. A full-blown, nuclear-level disaster. I should have told her to get the hell out. Instead, I asked, where's the drive now? She hesitated. Then, slowly, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small black USB. She set it on the table between us. I stared at it. That tiny piece of plastic and metal was the reason she was here. The reason she had been running. And now? It was my problem, too. I should have walked away. Instead, I picked it up. That was my sixth. I turned the small flash drive over in my fingers, feeling its weight, or rather, the weight of what it represented. This tiny, insignificant-looking thing was apparently worth enough to make a man disappear, enough to make my ex-wife run, enough to bring her here. To me. I exhaled sharply and looked at her. So let me get this straight. You took this to the cops, they ignored you, and then somebody, maybe him, maybe someone else, started watching you. She nodded. And your brilliant plan, I continued, my voice dripping with sarcasm, was to show up here, at my place, and drag me into this. Her jaw tightened. I didn't know where else to go. I scoffed, shoving the flash drive into my pocket. Yeah, you keep saying that. She frowned. What are you doing? I ignored her, grabbing my laptop from the counter and flipping it open. Finding out exactly what kind of nightmare you've just handed me. She sat up straighter. You're going to open it? I gave her a flat look. No, I was planning to eat it, actually. She glared. That's not what I meant. I don't know if that's a good idea. Well, sweetheart, that ship has sailed. I plugged the drive in and waited as my computer recognized it. A folder popped up, simple, unassuming. Just a bunch of neatly labeled files. I clicked one at random. A spreadsheet. Rows and rows of numbers, names, transactions. Some names were fake, I could tell immediately, common placeholder names used in fraud cases, but others looked real. I clicked another file. More names. More numbers. Some highlighted in red. Then another. And that's when I saw it. A name I recognized. I froze. My blood ran cold. Because it wasn't just some random name. It wasn't the name of a faceless businessman or a corporate executive caught in a shady deal. It was the name of a cop I knew. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. No wonder they brushed her off. No wonder nobody wanted to touch this. It wasn't just some low-level scam. It wasn't just fraud. This was bigger. This was corruption, money moving through places it shouldn't be, people with power involved. I exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand down my face. You have no idea what you've done. She shifted in her seat. What do you mean? I turned the laptop toward her, pointing at the name. Recognize it? She leaned in, scanning the screen. Her face paled. Wait, is that yeah? I shut the laptop. The guy you went to for help? He's on the damn list. She sucked in a sharp breath, hands curling into fists. Oh my God. Oh my God, I mocked, running a hand through my hair. Yeah. Oh my God. Because you didn't just poke the bear, sweetheart. You walked right up to it, slapped it across the face, and asked if it wanted to dance. She buried her face in her hands. I didn't know. Well, you sure as hell do now. Silence stretched between us. Then quietly she said, what do we do? We. I let out a bitter laugh. There's no we. This is your mess. Her head snapped up. You think they're just going to leave you alone? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because she had a point. She had led them here. And if someone was really watching her, if someone knew she had this drive, then they knew where she had gone. And now? Now I was a loose end too. I let out a slow, measured breath. We need to get rid of this. She frowned. What? No. If we destroy it, we lose the only leverage we have. We? I repeated, standing up. You lose your leverage. I didn't sign up for this. She stood, too, desperation flashing in her eyes. So what, you're just going to pretend this never happened? That they're not going to come looking for me? For you. I clenched my jaw. I hated that she was right, because even if I wanted to wash my hands of this, even if I threw the drive into the ocean and pretended none of this had ever happened, I was already involved. The second she walked through my door, the second I let her stay, I became a part of this, and I had no idea how deep it went. I turned away, pacing. My mind raced through possibilities. We couldn't go to the cops. Not when at least one of them was in on it. We couldn't run. Not when we had no idea who was watching. Which meant we had one option. We had to expose this. All of it. I stopped pacing and looked at her. We leak it. She blinked. What? I grabbed my phone, scrolling through contacts. We send it to someone who can't be bought. A journalist. An investigator. Someone who'll put it out in the open. Her brow furrowed. But think about it, I interrupted. If we destroy it, we're screwed. If we run, we're screwed. But if we make it public? Then suddenly it's not just us who knows. I held up my phone. And I know someone who can help. She hesitated. Who? I smirked. An old friend. I found the number, hesitated for only a second, then hit call. It rang. Once. Twice. Then didn't think I'd hear from you again, a familiar voice drawled on the other end. I exhaled. Yeah, well, I've got something you're gonna want to see. The line was silent for a beat. Then, that's so? I could hear the faint hum of background noise on the other end. A bar, maybe? A radio playing low. The sound of someone lighting a cigarette. I hadn't talked to him in years. Not since before the divorce, before my life had been torn in two. But if there was one person I could trust to handle something like this, it was him. Logan. A journalist. A damn good one. The kind who didn't give a shit about money, who didn't bend for politicians or cops or corporate assholes. If you had a scandal, a crime, a story that needed exposing, he was the guy to go to. I leaned against the counter, my pulse steady but my mind racing. Yeah. It's bad, Logan. A low chuckle. Bad like actually bad, or bad like the time you called me at 2 a.m. because you thought your neighbor was running a drug ring? I sighed. That was one time and it was suspicious as hell. Turned out to be a daycare. Whatever. I rubbed my temple. Listen, this isn't a false alarm. I have something real. Names. Transactions. Evidence. Logan went quiet for a moment. Then, how real are we talking? I hesitated, then took the laptop and flipped it back open. I scrolled through the files until I landed on the one with the name of the dirty cop. My stomach twisted as I reread it. Bribes. Money laundering. Ties to people who didn't leave loose ends. I stared at the screen and spoke carefully. This is bigger than just some businessman skimming off the top. This involves law enforcement. Logan cursed under his breath. Shit. Yeah. He was quiet for a moment. Then his voice lowered. Where'd you get it? I glanced at her. She was watching me closely, her arms wrapped around herself, her expression unreadable. I sighed. You don't want to know. Logan exhaled. And you trust this source? I almost laughed. Did I trust her? No. Not even a little. But did I believe she was in real danger? Yes. She has no reason to lie, I said instead. Another pause. Then, finally, all right. Logan's voice turned serious. Send me what you've got. I'll start looking into it. But listen, if this is as big as you're making it sound, you need to watch your back. If the wrong people find out you have this, I know, I muttered. A beat of silence. Then Logan sighed. Okay. Send it to me. And don't do anything stupid. Wouldn't dream of it. I hung up. Then, without looking at her, I said, pack a bag. She frowned. What? We can't stay here. I closed the laptop and yanked the flash drive from the port. If they're watching you, it's only a matter of time before they come looking. She swallowed. Where are we going? I grabbed my keys. Somewhere safe. An hour later, we were on the road. I didn't tell her where we were going. Hell, I wasn't even sure myself. All I knew was we needed to be gone. I had packed a bag, stuffed the flash drive into my pocket, and we had left my apartment without looking back. She sat beside me, staring out the window, her fingers fidgeting in her lap. I could feel the tension rolling off her in waves. After a while, she finally spoke. "This friend of yours, Logan, can you trust him?" I kept my eyes on the road. "Yes." She hesitated. "What if he won't sell us out?" I cut in. "He's not like that." She exhaled. "I hope you're right." So did I. We drove in silence for a while, the hum of the highway the only sound between us. The further we got from the city, the heavier the weight on my chest felt. Because I knew, deep down, this wasn't over. If Logan was right, if this was big, then it wouldn't be as simple as leaking the files and walking away. People with power protected their secrets. And if they thought we were a threat, I clenched the steering wheel. I didn't want to think about what came next, but I had a feeling I wouldn't have a choice. We didn't make it through the night before everything went to hell. I had picked a motel in the middle of nowhere, one of those run-down, neon-lit places that looked like it had seen better days about 40 years ago. It was cheap, off the grid, and most importantly, didn't ask for IDs. We got the keys, and I pulled the car around to the back where it wouldn't be visible from the main road. My ex-god, I still didn't know how to think of her, walked in silence beside me, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She hadn't said much since we left my apartment, but I could feel it, the storm inside her, brewing under the surface. I unlocked the door to the room and flicked on the light. The place smelled like stale cigarettes and cheap disinfectant, but it was clean. Functional. Safe. Or so I thought. I dropped my bag on the floor and turned to her. "All right," I said, exhaling. "We'll stay here for the night. Logan will let me know when he's got something," and then a loud crack interrupted me. For a split second, I didn't understand what had happened. My brain struggled to process it. Then, slowly, I turned my head. The bathroom mirror had a spiderweb of cracks running through it. Her hand was still pressed against the glass, her knuckles white. She had punched it. I exhaled through my nose, clenching my jaw. "Really?" She didn't look at me. Just kept her head down, her shoulders shaking. I ran a hand through my hair, forcing myself to stay calm. "I get that you're pissed, but breaking shit isn't going to help." She let out a bitter laugh. "You get it." I crossed my arms. "Yeah." She turned then, her face twisted in something between anger and exhaustion. "You don't get it. You don't know what it's like to wake up one day and realize your entire life is a lie. To realize you gave up everything for someone who used you, who saw you as nothing more than a stepping stone to something bigger. You don't." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Her mouth snapped shut. I took a slow step forward, my voice calm. "I don't know what that feels like." I let out another bitter chuckle. "That's rich. That's real rich coming from you." She flinched. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. "Let me remind you, sweetheart, I know exactly what it feels like to have your life ripped out from under you. Because you're the one who did it to me." Her breath hitched. I shook my head, stepping back. "So don't stand there and act like you're the only one who's ever been lied to, betrayed, used. I lived that reality. And it was because of you." Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. She swallowed hard, looking down. "I know," she whispered. I didn't answer, because what was there to say? Another long silence. Then, finally, she inhaled shakily and looked up. "Do you hate me?" I blinked. The question caught me off guard. Did I? A year ago, the answer would have been easy. A resounding yes. But now, I didn't know anymore. I hated what she had done. Hated the way she had broken me, the way she had walked away and never looked back. But sitting here, seeing her like this, stripped of all the arrogance, all the lies, all the bullshit, I wasn't sure what I felt. I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck. "It doesn't matter." Her brows furrowed. "It does to me." I exhaled. "I don't have the energy to hate you. Not anymore." She nodded slowly, like that answer hurt more than if I had just said yes. I looked away, shaking my head. "Get some sleep. We don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring." She hesitated, then nodded and walked toward the bed. I took the chair in the corner. I wasn't going to sleep anyway. Not until I heard from Logan. The call came at 3:14 a.m. I had been half asleep, my body slumped against the wall, when my phone buzzed. I grabbed it immediately, bringing it to my ear. "Talk to me." Logan's voice was low. Serious. We have a problem. I sat up straighter. What kind of problem? He hesitated. I started digging. The files you sent me? They check out. This is huge, bigger than I thought. But here's the thing, he exhaled. Somebody else is looking for this information. My stomach twisted. Who? That's the problem, I don't know. But when I started making calls, asking questions, somebody must have caught wind of it. Because about an hour ago, my system got hit with a cyber attack. Someone knew I had the files, and they tried to wipe my entire drive. My grip tightened around the phone. Did they get anything? No, Logan said. I keep backups. But whoever these people are, they have resources. And if they're tracking my movements, my chest went cold. They might be tracking mine. Logan's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I turned my head sharply. She was still asleep, curled up under the blanket, unaware of the fact that the noose around us was tightening. I lowered my voice. Tell me what to do. Logan exhaled. Get rid of the drive. Now. And get the hell out of there. I ended the call, my heart pounding. Then, without a second of hesitation, I grabbed her shoulder and shook her awake. She jolted upright, blinking blearily. Wah! We need to leave, I said, already grabbing my bag. She frowned. Now? Why? I turned to her, my voice deadly calm. Because someone knows we have the files. And if they find us before Logan goes public with them, I let that sentence hang in the air. Her face drained of color. She didn't ask any more questions. 5 minutes later, we were in the car, speeding away from the motel, the flash drive clutched in my fist. And as I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw it. A pair of headlights in the distance. Following us.